Welcome to the realm of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Enjoy listening. Kevin Donovan was having one of the hardest days of his life. After much insistence from his friends, he had moved to space, but adapting to life here was proving to be a real challenge. To make matters worse, his friends had not been much help. Their indifferent attitudes left him deeply disappointed. Because of this, he was seriously considering returning to Earth. However, he had no idea that today would change all of his decisions. His house constantly had issues. The kitchen sink kept leaking, and with no help from his friends, Kevin had no choice but to call the emergency repair numbers listed in the house. He quickly found a plumbing service and dialed the number. Half an hour later, his doorbell rang. When Kevin opened the door, he found someone entirely different from what he had expected. Standing before him was a tall woman with long, silver hair, emerald green skin, and sharp, cat-like eyes. She wore black gloves, and her outfit, though functional, looked as if she had just stepped out of an extravagant gala. "Hello, I got your call. I'm Nara," she introduced herself. Kevin blinked in surprise, taking a second to process the sight in front of him. "You're a plumber?" he asked skeptically. Nara lifted the advanced tools in her hands. "Let's put it that way. I specialize in universal systems. Your pipes here are old and inadequate. I need to take a look." Still in shock, Kevin stepped aside, allowing her to enter. Nara moved directly to the kitchen, crouched down, and examined the pipes. Kevin continued watching her, still trying to wrap his head around the situation. A question popped into his mind. Placing his hands on his hips, he asked, "So, why are you doing plumbing work? I mean, to be honest, you seem a little extravagant for this job." He eyed her elegant attire. Nara laughed at his comment and replied, "Look, in a competitive business, you have to be creative to attract customers. If I wore a standard work uniform, you wouldn't even remember me." Kevin raised an eyebrow and smirked. "I don't think remembering you would have been a problem." Nara gave him a playful wink. "Then I suppose the system is working?" Kevin leaned against the kitchen counter, sighing. "Everything in space is so strange and different. It's exhausting." Nara, still focused on her work, glanced up at him. "You don't have to get used to it, but maybe there are things here worth discovering." Kevin noticed the depth in her gaze. For a moment, he reconsidered his decision to leave. Maybe he simply hadn't met the right people, until now. After finishing her repairs, Nara packed up her tools and stood up. Kevin realized she was about to leave, and something inside him urged him to make her stay just a little longer. "Nara," he called suddenly. You did a really good job. Would you like some coffee as a thank you?" Nara smiled slightly. "Coffee? According to which planet standards?" Kevin chuckled as he walked to the kitchen counter. "Earth standards. Maybe it'll convince you." Nara hesitated for a moment, then shrugged and took a seat. "All right, I'll give it a try. But I hope Earth coffee is as good as people say." As the coffee machine hummed to life, Nara glanced curiously around the kitchen. "How long have you been living here?" she asked. Kevin sighed and shook his head. "A little over a month. But honestly, I don't think I fit in here. Everything feels too foreign. Like this place isn't really mine." Nara held his gaze. "Maybe you just haven't met the right people yet." Kevin fell silent for a moment. He poured the coffee into 2 cups and handed one to Nara before sitting down across from her. "If everyone here were as interesting as you, I might think differently about this place." Nara sipped her coffee and immediately made a slight face. "A bit bitter, but not bad." Kevin laughed. "I made it without sugar. Do you prefer it strong?" Nara shook her head. "I usually go for different kinds of drinks, but this isn't too bad." They continued their conversation over coffee, talking first about simple topics, Kevin's life on Earth, Nara's amusing work experiences. But as time passed, their discussion deepened. Nara sensed Kevin's hidden loneliness, the struggle of adapting to a new life. Kevin, in turn, grew increasingly curious about Nara's past, though she didn't reveal much. The hours passed quickly, and night had already fallen outside. Kevin found himself completely at ease with Nara, something he hadn't felt in a long time. He wished she would stay a little longer. At that moment, Nara leaned in slightly and pressed a soft kiss against his cheek. Kevin's heart raced. His eyes widened and he held his breath, hoping for more. But just as he was about to close the distance between them, Nara pulled back slightly and whispered, "I have to go." Kevin hesitated, looking at her with surprise. "Now, at this hour?" Nara gave him a knowing smile. "I have work to do on this planet, Kevin, but maybe we'll see each other again." She picked up her bag and walked toward the door. Kevin wanted to say something, anything, to make her stay, but the words wouldn't come. Just before leaving, Nara placed a small card on the kitchen table. Kevin watched as she disappeared through the door. Slowly, he picked up the card. It read, "Nara, Multi-Purpose Repair and Support Services. If you ever want to see me again, don't hesitate to call." Kevin held the card, a small smile forming on his lips. There was something different about this place, after all. Maybe, just maybe, it wasn't so bad. The next morning, Kevin woke up still thinking about the night before. Nara's touch, her scent, her laughter, everything was imprinted in his mind. He looked at the card she had left behind, taking a deep breath. Pushing aside his doubts, he picked up his phone and dialed the number. Just as he was about to press the call button, his phone suddenly rang. His eyes widened in surprise. The caller was Nara. Smiling, he answered. Her voice, as confident and playful as ever, came through the line. "How did you get my number?" she teased with a light laugh. Kevin grinned. "There's nothing I can't find out." Before he could say another word, there was a sharp knock on his door. His heart skipped a beat. He was still on the phone with Nara, but the person outside, it had to be her. He rushed to the door, excitement bubbling inside him. As he swung it open, he found himself face to face with Nara, who was smiling with that familiar feline glint in her eyes. Without a word, they both hung up their phones. In an instant, Nara grabbed Kevin's collar, pulling him close for a deep, passionate kiss. It was unexpected, intense, and erased all of Kevin's doubts in a single moment. That day turned into a blur of fire and emotion. Breakfast was forgotten. Time ceased to exist. Nara's presence melted away Kevin's loneliness and uncertainties. Her touch, her whispered words, her laughter, and those occasional serious, searching gazes pulled him in deeper with every passing second. By sunset, Kevin rested his head on Nara's shoulder and finally admitted, "Before I met you, I was planning to return to Earth." Nara turned to him instantly, a shadow crossing her face. "I never want you to leave," she said softly but firmly. Kevin was taken aback by the intensity in her voice. He had expected some resistance, maybe even a little teasing, but not this raw, unfiltered emotion. He studied her face, searching for something, hesitation, uncertainty, but there was none. Nara meant every word. "You never want me to leave," he repeated, his voice quieter this time. Nara sighed, her emerald green fingers reaching up to touch his face lightly. "Kevin, I know you've struggled to adjust here. I know you feel like you don't belong, but leaving isn't the answer." Her sharp, feline-like eyes softened. "You belong where you are wanted, where you are needed." Kevin swallowed hard, his mind racing. "And you think I'm needed here?" A smirk tugged at the corner of her lips. "I know you are." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The quiet hum of the city beyond his window filled the silence between them. He felt the weight of her words pressing against his chest, urging him to rethink everything he had planned. Finally, he exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "Okay," he murmured. "Say, I stay." "What then? I can't just wander around aimlessly forever." Nara leaned back, crossing her arms in a way that was both confident and teasing. "Then we find something for you to do. And I might have an idea." Kevin narrowed his eyes at her suspiciously. "I swear, if you suggest I become a space plumber—" Nara burst into laughter, shaking her head. "I don't need an assistant, don't worry. I was thinking of something a little more exciting." "Exciting, huh?" He raised an eyebrow. "I don't know, Nara. You fixing broken pipes was pretty thrilling." She rolled her eyes, but her smirk remained. "I meant real work, off-world assignments, recovery jobs, interstellar negotiations." Kevin frowned. "That sounds like a fancy way of saying trouble." "Not trouble," she corrected. "Adventure." He chuckled. "You make it sound so easy." "It is," she replied simply. "If you're with me." Something about the certainty in her voice, made him believe it. She wasn't just offering him a job, she was offering him a purpose, a life, and maybe, just maybe, a home. Kevin let the thought settle in his mind. A few hours ago, he had been so sure he wanted to return to Earth, to leave this strange, chaotic world behind. But now, as he looked into Nara's knowing gaze, he realized something. Earth wasn't his home anymore. She was. A slow smile spread across his face. "All right," he said finally. "Let's do it. Whatever this is, I'm in." Nara's expression brightened, and before he could say anything else, she leaned in and kissed him deeply. It was a kiss filled with promise, with certainty, with something neither of them had spoken aloud yet. Kevin lost himself in the kiss, in the warmth of her touch, in the way she fit so perfectly against him, as if the universe had designed this moment just for them. His hands slid around her waist, pulling her closer, deepening the connection between them. He could feel her heartbeat against his chest, steady, strong, and real. It was a rhythm he didn't realize he had been searching for all this time. When they finally pulled apart, their foreheads rested together, their breaths mingling in the dimly lit room. Nara's emerald eyes sparkled mischievously. "You taste like coffee," she murmured, the ghost of a smile playing on her lips. Kevin chuckled, still slightly dazed. "And you taste like trouble." She grinned. "The best kind, though?" He sighed, his fingers tracing slow, lazy patterns along her back. "So, what happens now?" Nara tilted her head, pretending to think. "Well, we could sit here all night, basking in the afterglow of that amazing kiss. Or we could do something fun." "Define fun," Kevin said cautiously. Nara pulled away and grabbed her small, sleek wrist device. With a flick of her fingers, a holographic display appeared, filled with unfamiliar symbols and flashing coordinates. "There's a job I've been meaning to take, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to go alone." Kevin eyed her warily. "And this job is legal?" Nara's smirk widened. "Mostly," he groaned, running a hand down his face. "You're going to get me arrested on my first real night of staying here, aren't you?" "Relax," she said, playfully nudging him. "It's just a simple retrieval mission. Nothing too dangerous." "Nothing too dangerous," Kevin repeated dryly. "That's what people say right before things explode." Nara laughed. "You'll be fine. Besides, you wanted to find a purpose here, right?" He hesitated. A part of him knew this was reckless, that it was probably a terrible idea, but the other part, the part that had been restless, searching, longing for something more, was intrigued. And then there was Nara. She was fire and mystery and adventure wrapped in a single, breathtaking package. If he was going to stay, if he was going to build a new life, then there was no one else he'd rather do it with. Kevin exhaled sharply and nodded. "All right, but if this goes south, I'm blaming you." Nara winked. "Fair enough." She grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the door. "Come on, I have a ship waiting. You're going to love it." Kevin barely had time to grab his jacket before she dragged him outside. The alien city stretched before them, its neon lights glowing in blues and purples, the streets buzzing with life even in the late hours. The air smelled different from Earth, crisper, tinged with something electric. They weaved through the crowd, Nara leading the way with practiced ease. She was in her element, and Kevin found himself drawn to the confidence in her steps, the way she navigated this world as if it belonged to her. Finally, they reached a sleek, silver spacecraft docked in a secluded hangar. It wasn't massive, but it was elegant, designed for speed and agility. Nara gestured dramatically. "Welcome to the Shadow Dancer." Kevin raised an eyebrow. "Did you name it, or did it come with a mysterious robe package?" She grinned. "A little of both." As they stepped inside, Kevin was instantly impressed. The interior was surprisingly comfortable, filled with personal touches, hanging trinkets, maps with scribbled notes, a small lounge area with plush seating. It was lived in, cozy, yet unmistakably a ship meant for someone who didn't stay in one place for long. "Strap in," Nara called over her shoulder as she took the pilot's seat. "We take off in 3, 2. Wait, what?" The ship lurched forward, the engines roaring to life as they shot out of the hangar and into the vastness of space. Kevin clutched his seat, heart pounding. A little warning next time? Nara laughed, adjusting the controls with practiced ease. Where's the fun in that? He exhaled, watching as the planet shrank behind him, replaced by an endless sea of stars. He had always thought space would feel cold, lonely. But here, beside Nara, it felt like the beginning of something new. She glanced at him, her expression softer now. You okay? Kevin met her gaze and smiled. Yeah, I think I am. She reached over, lacing her fingers with his. Good, because this is only the beginning. And for the first time in a long time, Kevin believed it.